Mindset Mavericks, your blueprint for bold thinking and boundless growth.
Welcome to Mindset Mavericks. Today we've got our guest Reuben Spath with us. He's an ultra-endurance athlete and an AI entrepreneur. So Reuben Spath is no ordinary entrepreneur. At just 25, he's completed an Ironman. By 28, he'd conquered the grueling Thames 100-kilometre challenge. But his endurance isn't just physical, it extends to business ventures. With a master's in AI, he's built and sold a time-tracking software as a service tool while still in university and is now developing MacroMate. It's an AI-driven health and wellness app. So his story is a masterclass in discipline, mindset and resilience traits essential for both endurance athletes and entrepreneurs. So thank you very much for joining us and welcome to Mindset Mavericks.
Thank you very much for having me, John. I'm a big fan.
Thank you very much. So just wanted to give the audience a bit of an idea where we're going to go in this episode and see some of the things they might learn about. So we're going to look at how to apply the mindset of an ultra-endurance athlete to business and some of the challenges of building and scaling tech startups. And also the mental toughness required to push through obstacles, which I think is really important both in business and personal life. So I'm really interested to get into some of those topics with you. But I wanted to start off really is on some of the endurance bits that you do. So what was it that made you take on endurance events like Ironman and the Thames 100K?
It's a bit of a funny story, but back when it was 2019 and I was in Hawaii with my girlfriend and two of my best friends. And I was looking for something big and daring to challenge my life. And I thought either I could become a Navy SEAL or I could do an Ironman. And I was chatting with my friends across the table, and I said, these are my two options, Navy SEAL or Ironman. My partner, my girlfriend, said, you are not becoming a SEAL. And my best mate said, there's no way you can do an Ironman. So one thing led to another, and I signed up in a week or so after.
Yeah, when you put it as two options like that, a Navy SEAL or an Ironman, it doesn't seem quite as scary, actually. Yes, it's either's quite a significant challenge. So what's the training like for that? So were you a runner to begin with? Had you always been a bit of an athlete?
Yeah, so thanks to my folks, I was a rugby player for the vast majority of my childhood, and I did a variety of different sports, boxing, Muay Thai, all of that. But I was never really a runner. When I signed up for the Ironman, I hadn't even run a triathlon. I definitely hadn't run a marathon, and probably the furthest I've ever run was about 5K. So
yeah, that's a pretty significant change then. So that must have been quite a challenge though, going from, like say, a 5K runner to training for an Ironman, which is a massive challenge. So how did you mentally prepare for that?
Yeah, it was almost like considering it done before I had even begun. So thinking about it as as something that I've already done in the past, whilst taking every step every day to achieve that goal. It was, that's how I approached it.
Yeah, and how has that training kind of translated to your business life?
Pretty well, actually. The ability to endure incredibly difficult experiences and push through to the other end has been wonderful for my business life. As many founders, as I'm sure you'd know, John, it's not always sunshines and rainbows. So being able to take the losses and still get back up and keep going is the thing that you need at your core to be a business owner or run your own businesses.
And for someone who doesn't know what an Ironman is, can you give a breakdown of what that actually looked like?
Yeah, for sure. So an Ironman is one of the longest, it's an ultra triathlon, which is effectively a swim, a cycle, and a run. The swim is 4 kilometers and the cycle is 180 kilometers. And then the run is a marathon. And you do these all one after the other.
But yeah, that's pretty tough. I think just a swim is bad enough. That'd be my downfall, I think. Did you have a favourite part of it or least favourite?
I enjoyed stopping.
Yeah, the transitions. Yeah. And did you have moments of self-doubt when you were doing that event?
The hardest part I found was so after you've done the swim, you then realize you've got another cycle and a run to do. There's these points and milestones which you turn around. So swim finishes, the cycle is a 2-route lap. So You do the first 90 kilometers, and then you realize that you have not only done the swim and half the cycle, you then need to double the cycle and run again. And that those calculations in your mind, there's two ways to look at them. The first is, oh God, I have to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Or I've already done this much so far. And when you've been going for hours and you're wonderfully exhausted and hungry and stuffed and full, it's very difficult to keep looking on the bright side.
But now I'm really interested in mindset around particularly these long races. I've done a 24-hour kind of relay race, and something called, in the UK, which is called Race to the Stones, or Race to the Towers one I did. So yeah, it's essentially 53 miles, and just trying to remember what that was like. And it is so difficult. You do hit those just walls, and I've literally just focused on 50 meters at a time. It was always just, I think about 5k of just 50 meters more, do that 50 meters, it's like just 50 more meters, and just having to keep repeating that over and over again. But yeah, it is a slog to get through it. So I'm always interested to hear any tips and tricks from anyone else that's been there.
Yeah, so I listened to an interesting book on endurance, which I can give to you later. But there was a study done which effectively said people who view things in a positive light are significantly more likely to suffer through an experience. So just what you said, 50 meters more is a perfect example. So being able to say, I can just keep going for the next 50 meters, or I've got this, I think I can step this further. This isn't that painful. Being able to talk yourself out of the suffering is just a wonderful skill. So, and I'm sure you understand this at a core level, but when you're going through those tough points, your brain just screams at you negativity. If you can talk yourself out of it and say, no, it's not that bad, you can keep going, that will get you through 100%.
And I'm also interested in the training for it as well, because I know certainly for me, there's days when you don't want to get up and do the training. You want to stay in bed for, it's like extra half hour, whatever it is, but you just do everything, like you say, to try and put it off. So when you are doing training runs, you know they're not as important as the main event. How do you push past the doubts and the barriers you put in your own way, really?
You grin and bear.
Yeah.
But no, the amount of times that I've been sitting on the edge of my bed, it's pitch dark, it's 2 degrees outside, it's cold, miserable, you just want to stay in bed, but you kind of talk yourself into it and you say, look, I want to be the person that I've set out to be, saying I'm not going to become that person if I stay here, so you need to get doing.
Yeah, no, great advice. And it's very similar, again, to some of the things I've thought about. And it's that question I'd always ask myself, and it's, what would the person that I want to be do? And the person I want to be would get up and do it. And so I've got to do it then. It's got to be done.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, there's a great technique that I found whilst running, is that when you're running and you're tired and you're exhausted and you can't be bothered, keep going, you can always imagine yourself 20 meters in front of you, running with perfect posture. Strides are great, their breathing's great. It's you, but in your best possible form, and you're trying to reach that person. And then behind you is 20 meters is someone, yourself, who is slouched over, is struggling to move forward, and you're trying to run away from that person. So you're trying to achieve your best whilst you're trying to avoid your worst. It's a good technique.
Yeah, it sounds really good. It's great visualization technique. And I think that's probably something that could be used for any situation, really, not just running, whether it's public speaking or you've got to go and give a presentation to a pitch to somebody for your business or anything. It could be used in very similar parallels, really.
Yeah. Imagining the best possible outcome and trying to avoid the worst.
Yeah. And talking of which, you did build and sell a time tracking tool as well while you're still in university. Can you tell us a little bit about that tool and how that came about?
Yeah, so when I first started university, I had to work part-time at a company called the Labour Exchange. And one of the biggest issues that they found were timesheets. So we had guys going out every day trying to collect timesheets for people who worked on site. And it just became a massive hassle. And I found that at a nightclub that I worked for, a year earlier, they also had paper timesheets. You'd lose them. You weren't able to book holidays. I found that it was a pretty persistent problem in New Zealand. And with my technical degree that I was studying and my experience with timesheets, I figured may as well start and build it myself. So over the next couple of years, I built, developed, and then started employing contractors to do the development and design for me. So it very much grew into a well-rounded system. And I very recently, just after moving to the UK, sold it. And it's a nice way to bundle out the whole process and be able to say tick off and success.
But yeah, and I know you've got certainly other projects we're going to go on and speak about shortly. But for that product, you've obviously built that, you've done it as software as a service, but how did you go about marketing that and putting that out to clients?
Yeah, so I tested a lot of different avenues, and I found there are a couple of, what I learned was that there are people who visit specific sites want specific things. So if you're marketing on a tool like Instagram, people aren't really going there to track their timesheets. But if you're marketing on Google, you're going to get a much better response. Then because we built this app which had this great design, great user experience, we started advertising on the marketplaces of iOS and Android. And that significantly shot up our downloads and our users. And that was quite a successful turnaround. So I guess the biggest piece was testing quickly and identifying trends that were successful.
So that's how you actually build your initial client base. And that's obviously developed over what kind of period of time was it from putting the product out to market to the point where you got to the stage where you wanted to sell it?
Yeah, it's funny because when I think of how we first got started, the very first customer that I made from Timesheet wasn't from a friend or wasn't someone who believed in the tool. It was some person in Otahu who signed up on a Sunday morning for an entire year. And I wake up in the morning and I see this notification saying, "You've got your first customer." And I'm like, how? Why? Who? I had no idea, but I reached out to them afterwards. I said, "Thank you so much." And they said, "Yeah, we love it. It's a great product." And that was quite an exhilarating experience.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a great, like I say, great intro, and especially it doesn't come from the usual place that most products start, which is friends and family. So from your first product, what did you start to do to market that? You've obviously said you've gone onto Google and started putting that into, I'm guessing, paid ads and things. Did you do much social media promotions? I know you've mentioned Instagram and it was not really the place for it, but did you use a social media strategy?
Yeah, so that's not really something that I utilized for Timesheet. It is definitely a good avenue, and it's actually one that we're employing with MacroMate because I believe that there's more virality on a B2C customer or solution rather than a B2B. And I find that depending on which customers we're trying to approach or we're trying to attract, you need to have different marketing strategies to ensure that they do actually find your tool. But that brings up a good point of the MacroMate piece, which currently we are having, I think it's 8 different influencers with a range from 10,000 to 150,000 followers, all promoting our app. And hopefully that's going to mean over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see near enough 1 million views on our promotions.
And how long has it now been launched, MacroMate? So I know it's your most recent product. When did that come out?
At the end of November last year, on a weekend, I got to coding. I built an app in a weekend and launched it. It was, I don't know if I can swear here, but it was not great. And so it's only been out for 3 months, but it's really come a long way. The functionality, the tools, the design has all improved dramatically over these last couple of months, and it's only going to get better, sincerely.
Yeah, it's interesting to say you've literally built it over a weekend. And I think one of the things that people do frequently is procrastinate and put off doing things. And like I say, just have those excuses for not doing something, which we spoke about earlier. So what was the reason for putting it through so fast for you?
I am an impatient person.
Yeah.
But I believe that you should always act. If your options are act or don't act, you should act. And instead of waiting to see or waiting for the perfect storm or whatever you're waiting for, being able to act, get external feedback and get real world responses is significantly better than making it perfect or making it something that you think will be the best thing ever. It's better to get that feedback from your users and kind of understand what it is that.
So what's that initial reaction to build the app in response to something? Is it something you'd had an idea for a long time? What's the driving factor for it?
So after the 100-kilometer, the Thames that I completed in September, it's funny, and I'm sure you'd understand this, Jon, but when you're exercising frequently and you're exercising daily, you're running these long distances, you get to a certain point where you need to eat as much to match the exercise that you're doing. When you finish your exercise and you keep eating the way you do, you put on a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So I had put on something like 8 kilos since I've completed the 100 kilometers, which not great. But what I did is I figured if I'm going to lose weight, I need to know what kind of calories are inside my food and I want to track it. But I don't want to go in to use an app and add, for example, let's say you had eggs for breakfast. You'd have to, a good example would be like MyFitnessPal, where you have to go in, you have to select 2 eggs, and then you have to select the type that they were cooked, and then you have to select X. You have to add a piece of toast, some butter, and it's a nightmare. It takes about as much time to create that meal as it did to cook the meal. So what I did is, alternatively, I made a tool where you can actually just speak into your phone, or you can take a photo of your food, and it will tell you how much calories are in your food with a best guess accuracy, or like a near enough accuracy to help me lose weight. And to cut a long story short, because of that, I've now lost 6 kilos.
Wow.
So it's the proof is in the pudding.
Proof is there, yeah. But yeah, no, it's really interesting that you brought that up. I had a conversation just this morning, and it was around people who are training hard, could be pro athletes, etc. For whatever reason, they stop, and then suddenly their eating is still at the level as though they're training 6 hours every day. And you sometimes do see people that do suddenly put on a lot of weight, they're still eating as they were, and not really having that awareness about what they're doing. So I can definitely see the need for it and the use for it. So is it that particular pain point that you're trying to solve really around the speed that some of the other apps do, like MyFitnessPal? Is it really that you're trying to solve, the amount of time that it takes to input?
Yeah. So when I first started, that was one of the biggest pain points for me. That was what got me going. And since then, I've had 4 other people now join me on this journey. So we've now partnered to build this business to a much greater height. And the goal has actually changed. So instead of it just being to cut your calories and eat less than you're consuming, less than you're burning, it's changed to approaching health and well-being in a positive way. Because there are a lot of people out there who eat incredibly unhealthily and then they starve themselves, or there's just not that care and effort put into living a healthy and balanced life. And to a certain degree, completing an Ironman in 100 kilometers isn't a balanced life, but you should have a tool or something that is out there that is able to support you through your holistic approach to life, rather than just the food that you eat going in and going out. It's much more than that, and we believe that is how we can help people achieve their health and well-being goals.
And yeah, it is interesting. I think some of the interesting parts there is that you can have 2,000 calories, for example, of fats from McDonald's, or you can have 2,000 calories, which is going to give you fiber and good ratios of macro proteins, carbs, etc. So is that something that is helped through your app? Is that something you can get advice on through your app?
Yeah. So we have actually introduced an AI coach, which will not only take into consideration the food that you've eaten throughout the day, but it also takes into consideration your goals, if you're achieving them, your journaling. It will ask you questions to say, are you in line with your long-term goals? How did your short-term goals go today? We noticed that you ate this. Did it make you feel energized? How do you want to, maybe you should substitute this piece of your meal to this piece, or you've eaten a lot of carbs, maybe you should eat some more protein. We've tried to make it as holistic as possible. And with the tools of AI, we're actually able to really build out your best mate, which is why we've called MacroMate.
Yeah, no, it sounds like some really good features on there. And are you doing like a monthly subscription model, or what's the kind of sign-up process for MacroMate?
Yeah, so we are offering so we charge either a monthly subscription rate or a yearly subscription rate. And admittedly, so Jon, we haven't spoken about this earlier today, but for everyone who listens on Mindset Mavericks, if you use the term Mindset Maverick as a promo code, you will get 50% off your yearly subscription. So yeah, make sure you use it.
Amazing. So yeah, we'll definitely be putting that in the notes as well. And it should be quite easy to remember. Mindset Maverick is the promo code, but I'll put it in the show notes and a link to the app as well. So thank you very much. And we did just mention goals a second ago. So what I want to know is how are you setting your goals? Like I say, it's been a very quick turnaround and building it over a weekend to get started. So how do you personally go about setting goals?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of shooting incredibly high. And I understand that you're doing a lot as well with your ventures and the things that you're working on. And I would like to think that you also aim incredibly high. So the things that I set myself are what is colloquially termed as big, hairy, audacious goals, or a BHAG. And I'm a firm believer shooting incredibly high. If you miss it, you still you achieve a massive amount. But Jon, have you got the same experience?
Oh, 100%, yeah. I think there's definitely pitfalls to it, but yeah, you do certainly aim high. And I think one of the dangers you can fall into if you're shooting high is when your actually achievements aren't quite hitting where you want them to be. And is that something you've faced, or how do you deal with that and the stress you put yourself under by setting your goal so high?
Yeah. To be fair, it is a bit of a double-edged blade, but having those big, hairy, audacious goals as something that you can strive for, because to a certain degree, it's that same piece of imagining the person in front of you running and imagining the person behind. There's still always that bigger goal to go after, but to a certain degree, you need to enjoy the experience as well. And that's never lost on.
Yeah, and I know you said that you've brought people on as well. And how have you gone about choosing the right people? Because I think there can be a mismatch if you're bringing on people where your expectations are different to what their expectations are. So how do you go about finding the right partners?
Yeah, so the people that our team, are all people that I have worked with or gone to school with. And they're people that I know on a fundamental level. And there is a lot to be said around finding the right person. From personal experience, when I started Timesheet, I did it myself completely through and through. And to a certain degree, it is incredibly lonely. And having those people around you to support you is quite useful. Choosing of your people requires a little bit of consideration, but they're usually the people who spark you and they excite you. They're the people that you want to do well in life. And if you have the ability to do well and succeed, then you should also do what you can to make sure that they succeed as well.
And one of the things I want to is still focused on the kind of goal element. So you've built this quite quickly, this app, you're still making changes all the time. You've brought people on as well to start working on the team. So how do you go about setting your goals for your future, and what are the next goals for MacroMate?
So long term, I would love to have millions of people using MacroMate. I would love for it to be a tool that people use to help achieve their own health and well-being goals. If it helps one person other than myself, I think that's incredible, and that's a massive win. If it helps millions and people achieve more than they thought that was possible of themselves, then that would just it would be incredible. The next step is getting to a point where we can reach more people, grow further. We've got a lot of functional improvements coming along the way, but the more users that use the app, the better we can make it. And I would love to help the world achieve their health and well-being goals.
And today we've spoken previously a little bit about some of the opportunities for AI and personal well-being, but I know you've got a master's in AI as well. So where do you see some of the opportunities in the future for AI and personal well-being?
So there are so many opportunities available in the future and with the world of artificial intelligence. I would love for a future where we are able to utilize biomechanical augmentations and help prove and improve people who are disadvantaged through health issues or some type of tragedy, and be able to provide prosthetics, not just for limbs, but for other internal organs as well, to help make people's lives whole. And I think that there's really, truly market space and an opportunity there to make a lot of lives significantly better with these types of tools that are coming out. And I think artificial intelligence is going to be the tool that helps us get there for a lot of things, and then not just get there, but significantly further by helping improving a lot of people's lives.
And with MacroMate, is that something that that MacroMate can handle? For example, people who have got medical issues and can't eat certain diets, whether it's having to limit amounts of protein, etc. Is that something that MacroMate is currently able to achieve?
Yeah, so we've generated health and meal plans according to your preferences. So your preferences, likes, dislikes, how many people you'd like to prepare for, how like the duration, so weeks or days, as well as any type of medical illness that you may have. So that could be chronic diseases, it could just be intolerances. And we've even gone a step to make sure that we prepare meal plans for people who are pregnant as well, because there is a lot of limitations around what you can and can't eat as you're pregnant.
Have you seen any distrust of AI? I think where AI is being relied on in so many different aspects of the world now and everyday life, people are still skeptical about it. Is that something you've faced creating MacroMate? And is there anything you're doing specifically to try and overcome that?
Absolutely. The distrust for technology has been persistent for a long time, and I don't think the Terminator helped.
No.
But I think that the future is one where we work hand in hand with technology. So these days, using computers, as part of our daily life, and being able to use microphones, earbuds, everything like this is something that was foreign 100 years ago. It didn't even exist. I think the way that the world is going to work is that slowly people are going to become more and more comfortable with it. And we're going to take continuous efforts to improve how we handle AI in this scope, in this space. What we're doing specifically for improving the relationship between humans and AI is we've put in some pretty stringent data privacy rules which stop you from having any of your personal data shared and utilized for any other reason than looking after or improving your own personal health and well-being. Because at the end of the day, this is a tool, fantastic tool, but it's still a tool, and we need to be able to use it to improve our human connections, not just consider it a silver bullet.
And with the information that is being given out by MacroMate, is there things that are being done to verify that is correct information? I think when it comes to health, it is very important to make sure it's accurate and reliable and trustworthy. So what kind of balances and checks are there in place to ensure that that information given out is correct?
Yeah, so to a certain degree, there is variance in the data that is given out, and that kind of comes with the tools that are AI. We have put in specific structures in the system to prohibit unhealthy decisions. So a really good example for this is that when you first start and sign up, you can add your age, weight, height, gender, all of that good stuff. And it will actually create a goal for you, or a meal, a calorie or nutrient expectation for you. And what it will do is, if you do say, I want to lose 10 kilos in the next month, that's not reasonable or healthy. And that would probably be a prime example of many other things that we've done within the system to ensure that people are acting healthily and treating this as a holistic process, not just a silver bullet to go and lose all that weight.
It's amazing how much thought actually goes into when you start building these platforms and building the software, how many things that you wouldn't necessarily think about when you think, I've got a brilliant idea, I'm going to build this. There's so much more that goes into it. And I know you've now built 2 tech companies, so to speak. So what's one of the most painful mistakes you've made in starting these companies, and what have you learned from it?
The most painful mistake that I made from Timesheet, and this is me personally, I found that I employed developers too quickly. And what that did is that led to a bit of a slower release time and a slower improvement on the system. So I'm a person who wants to act quickly. I have very little patience, which is probably a shortfall, but also I think quite useful for me. But the thing that I learned was empowering people too early to take on something that is quite important has potentially shot myself in the foot. So with MacroMate, we still have a long way to go, but I don't necessarily think that we're going to start employing developers until we're really comfortable with the product, how it actually works within the system, and making sure that it solves a problem that we can see, that we believe that it will solve.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, again, we've been building Track, my most recent business, and it's very easy to think, well, I've got this idea, this is what I want to do, get the development teams in, start building it, but actually sometimes better to sit back, work out what those workflows are, what the kind of standard operating procedures are going to be for the platform, and try and do that first, because actually once you've started developing it, it can be quite tricky to turn things around and pivot. So yeah, I think that's definitely a good lesson for all of us.
It's quite funny. When I first started Timesheet, when I first actually employed my first co-developer to help me build it, we went away and we were like, okay, let's build all these great things. So there's going to be a client system, there's going to be a stopwatch system, and then there's going to be your time tracking system. I didn't realize in my naivety that you would need to have them all incorporated within each other. So they'd need to work together, which, looking back on it, was incredibly stupid to miss. But we went 6 months later, we'd built these 3 great systems, but they didn't speak to each other. And all of that effort was effectively for naught, because it wasn't a solution. It was just 3 different products that did similar things.
Like I said, definitely pros and cons though. Sometimes just taking action is the best way. It's just get something started. I think that's quite often the hardest step. It's just doing something can be the hardest step. And once you've done it, you've got that momentum and you keep going. So yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons to it. And you've spoken with both your companies, you kind of started them. It sounds like you've done a lot of the initial work yourself. So have you gone through periods of raising capital, or have you been able to kind of bootstrap it?
I've been able to bootstrap it. The interesting thing though, so from bootstrapping, my own experience with Timesheet, building it myself, growing it, selling it, like I said, incredibly lonely. It solved the problem that I believed it could, and it was a solution that was powerful enough for the people who used it. What I want to achieve with MacroMate is significantly more. And like I said, I would love to help millions of people achieve their health and well-being goals. So raising capital is going to be one of my next goals over the coming months, so that we can, in fact, reach millions of people.
So are you currently would you look for investment currently? Is that how you do it, to try and build it? Or is it more looking for an exit and for somebody who's coming in?
Yeah, so I'm building it to achieve this goal. So the exit isn't necessarily in my peripherals at the minute. It will inevitably come, but for now, the goal is growth and solving that true customer problem and then helping people achieve their goals.
So I think we've spoken a little bit about it already, but in terms of failure, what role does that play in building resilience? Have you faced many big setbacks? You've mentioned that one already.
Yeah. So there are setbacks time and time again. I guess a good example of this would be COVID. During COVID, the Ironman was postponed 3 times. The Ironman alone is a daunting task. Not knowing if it's going to happen or not is incredibly disheartening, especially after the second time. So then the third time rolls around, you go, is it even going to happen? Do I have to keep doing these early mornings, late nights, cycling, swimming, pain? That was quite difficult. The failures, I wouldn't necessarily call them hindrances or things that have put me back. They've more just been bumps in the road, which I can learn from, because to a certain degree, if you're continuing to move forward and you're trying to achieve something new, there's just going to be turns in the road. I don't necessarily think of them as losses, more of learnings.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that must be like with the Ironman. I think just the idea of you're training really hard. Like I say, it's lots of long runs, cycling, swimming, and then just have to keep doing that until an unknown time in the future. That must have been quite rough.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't an enjoyable experience. But yeah, it definitely prepares you mentally to know that, there's a great story I heard from From Good to Great. The author of From Good to Great hosted an event recently, and he talked about this. There was this man who was caught in a prison camp during World War II, and he found that there were 2 types of people. There were the optimists who thought an outcome was going to happen. So they'd be saying, we're going to get out in April. We're going to get out in April. Oh no, we're going to get out in May. May is going to come around and we're going to get out. And it would keep getting to those points where they're not going to get out. And so they'd keep saying, Christmas, we're going to get out. Come Christmas, we'll be out, we'll be home, we'll be fine. And he realized that the people who said we're going to be out by X were the ones who lost their faith the fastest. Whereas the ones who were saying, look, I don't know when we're going to get out, but we will get out, were the ones who survived and endured. So the ability to suffer through COVID and having those, we don't know when it's going to happen, but we will run that Ironman and I will finish the Ironman, was definitely a great learning experience to know that it's going to happen, not when, not if, but when.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting take on it. But yeah, I never really thought about it that way. But yeah, I can imagine that was still a tough time though, even with that mindset. So yeah. What I want to ask about is what excites you most about the kind of intersection of AI, health, and performance?
That's a good question. The thing that excites me the most is the humans are beautifully innovative. We take things that you would expect to be used in one way, and there will always be someone who uses it in another way. And with the current technology coming out and the things that will become available to us, the ability for humans to look at these tools in a new and novel way and then utilize it to solve problems is one of the most exciting things for me. And I am hoping to be one of them, but to be able to see it happen throughout the world is quite literally the most exciting thing for me right now.
So I'm sure there's a lot of people who'll be listening who want to dive into AI and start using it in their business and just don't really know where to start. So have you got any tips of where somebody should start?
ChatGPT. The first thing you want to do is just use it for whatever. You could go on, if you wanted to learn about Mindset Mavericks, you could search them up through that. You could learn about resilience. You could learn about any type of thing that is of interest to you. And if you learn more about and you use the tools more available to you, then you will become more comfortable, and then you'll be able to test it and use it in new and novel ways. And that is the perfect place to start.
And I think as well, just being able to put those questions out there, ask ChatGPT directly. You can, like I say, you can even talk into it now and say, this is my business. These are the issues that's taken up all of my time. how can you help me make that quicker?
Yeah.
Just really lean into it.
Yeah. And it has the education of a university intern. So it will most likely be a great answer for you.
So I'd like to move on to a bit of a quick fire round, just to get to know you a little bit more and a bit about your mindset. So I'll go on to the first question. The first one is, what's one book that's had the biggest influence on you?
The Magic of Thinking Big. It is taking your initial ideas and expanding them over and over again and thinking, how can I make this larger? What can I do to make this much greater than it already is?
And what has that enabled you to do that you might not have done before?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't have thought of the Ironman if I hadn't thought larger. If I was aiming for greatness, I don't think I would be in the same position as I am today.
Which is funny. So if you hadn't done the Ironman, you might not have thought about the MacroMate app, and it's just how one thing leads to another. So that's a great book to read up and look at.
Yeah.
Do you have one daily habit that puts you in the right mindset for the day?
So absolutely. I've started journaling. So I've bought these books from Moleskine and I write in them every day. It might not be just like, dear diary, today I did this. It's more like, this is the things that I've been working on at MacroMate. These are the challenges I've had. I'm still trying to figure this out. And it's kind of a weird thing, but you'll notice if you write down these problems, especially before you go to bed, A, you sleep better, and then B, you usually wake up with an answer, which who'd have thought?
But yeah, so I always enjoy hearing what people do. And a lot of people do say journaling, but it's interesting how it helps different people. So again, thank you for your answer. Is there one, or what is the biggest lesson in either life or business that you wish you'd learned sooner?
My gut says patience. I'm definitely not patient. It's something that I would like to learn. But if I was completely honest with you, I would say listening to your gut. Being able to respond and answer to how you feel internally is a massive power.
Another great answer. Thank you. And the final one for me today is, if you could enter someone into the Mindset Mavericks Hall of Fame, who would it be and why?
Oh, great question. There are a couple of names that came to mind. The first one, David Goggins. Resilience, motivation. The man is just a legend. And he deserves every right that is given to him. And he has taken massive, massive struggles to get to where he is. And I believe that he should be in the Hall of Fame without a doubt.
Yeah, it's a unique individual. And really, that's all the questions for me. But I wanted to leave the episode on a high and give you a final point. What would you like to leave our listeners with today, if there's one point from this podcast?
Artificial intelligence is your friend and will help you do incredible things.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm really excited to hear about MacroMate. I'll put all the links in the description as well. And there's obviously that offer you've given, 50% off a yearly membership. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for having me.